So thanks for coming. And we're here to, as a lab, to learn how to talk with the press. And the key things to remember, in fact, if there's one thing to remember, is that when you're talking to the press, you're talking to your mother's friends. If you remember only that, you're going to do spectacularly well. Because the thing about your mother's friends is your mother's been lying to them about you all those years, how wonderful you are and how much you know. And they're pussycats. They really just want to love you and they want to know what it is you're doing. That's all. They're not out to get you. They're not out to prove you wrong. There's no gotchas involved. And so if you're talking to that person in terms of vocabulary and speed and style, you're communicating to everybody on the other side of the camera. It's great. It's great. And so what we saw there is that when you head off in a direction it isn't working for you, it's just easy. You just say, let me do that again. The reporter will never, ever be impatient. They will never criticize you for that. That's what they want you to do. They don't want you to head off and try to fix something that isn't working. They want you to start over because the goal is crisp. All right, so now let's talk about deforestation in the Amazon basin. All right, so I understand you're studying afforestation. I only know deforestation.
So afforestation is the opposite of deforestation in that you're planting trees instead of cutting them down. But it's also kind of like deforestation in that it's a big man-made change to the vegetation in an area. So
now that's a great answer. Mm-hmm. I really, really like that. She had two sentences. This is how it is this way, this is so everybody would get that, right? That's really, really the gold standard. That's what you're trying to do. And every answer, just simple, bang, bang. And when I first say, well, is the ice sheet growing or shrinking? I need you to say in a couple of sentences, the sea ice is growing for various possible reasons, but it represents only a tiny fraction of the total ice. What really matters is the ice that's on top of the continent. And then you steer me in the direction, because otherwise I'm steering you off course, and you can't be that passive. Don't be passive in an interview. You think you're being interviewed like you're sitting there, you're a blob of silly putty, and they're going to ask you questions and you're going to reply, but that's not your job. Your job is to make it a much better interview than the reporter arrived thinking they could do. Your job is to figure out what will be good for the viewers, what will be interesting and exciting for the reporter, and steer it actively as you can. Okay, so let's start over. So then, shouldn't they turn them over to the Oklahoma Geological Survey and the U.S. Geological Survey so those agencies could do what you're describing?
I think this is what exactly you're doing right now. Like, as far as I remember, there is traffic. Sorry,
it's okay, and you're saying we, and so that could be misinterpreted that you work for an oil company. Mm-hmm. You say we, but you're talking about oil operators, and they're getting conflated. Mm-hmm. So be very, very specific about what you are and aren't, and what they are. All right, so let me just repeat the question.
Yeah, so all the time there's cars driving around in the Bay Area, there's waves going on, all kinds of things like that. And a lot of people will just see this as some kind of trash in a seismic signal when they're doing a seismic survey. But I actually take that, I do a lot of recordings of this noise, and I compare those recordings to each other, and I'm able to actually extract out how things change from recording to recording, and we pull out a signal from that.
Okay, great. Do you want to show me what you brought here?
Yeah. So I use these sensors that are really low cost per sensor, and it's just a fiber optic cable that's been repurposed as a seismic sensor. So, I don't know, can I get like 2 volunteers?
Does Santa Cruz Mountains rise up with this experiment?
Yeah, I can indeed. So they're locked, and then if I pull harder, looks like the clay may have dried.
Here. Oh yeah, that's going. Oh, fantastic.
There we go. And so it's hard to see, but in the scale of...
yeah, no, it's not. Yeah. Or you can ask the reporter for clarification. Go ahead.
Okay, so when you say earthquakes to start and stop, do you mean that the earthquake... And so you could say that in this analog here, it started somewhere around here, and it actually propagated northward from there.
So we did put it out there, you put a lot of energy into it. The model is fabulous,
Very good.
just worked perfectly. It's right at our speed. I'm sure it's great for the camera. No reporter, every reporter would love it if you walked in with this, you know, a pile of clay. And they would understand it, and they would find it fascinating. It was just super, super cool when the mountain just started to rise. It was a little bit of magic, and that's what science really means when it's working for people. You know, something exciting and understandable like that. So I'm really glad you went through the effort all for this experience, and I hope putting you in the hot seat gave you a taste for what it's about.